Hello, I'm Kurt Whitesell, and I want to welcome you to the coolest and most informative podcast in the Westfield, Indiana area. What's up, Westfield? What's up, Westfield is a local chat fest to dig deep into politics, development, who's doing what, and anything else we can fit into 45 minutes of fun online. If you have a topic or an interest in being an amazing guest, please reach out to us. We'd love to hear your ideas. My guest today is the driving force behind all the fun events in Westfield. From Touch a Truck, where kids get to hop inside a fire engine, or to the festival-like parties they throw at Grand Junction Plaza. She leads a team of employees and volunteers to make them really cool. She's perfect for this job, and as we are finding out that she is focused on making downtown Westfield just as she imagined as a new resident. Please welcome Kayla Arnold, the director of Westfield Welcome, to the podcast. Hi, Kayla. Thanks for being on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
What would you normally be doing on a Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. in Westfield?
Probably sitting in a meeting, getting ready to plan some events.
So you have meetings all day usually?
Usually, yeah. I like to break it up and try to, get outside if I can, but a lot of meetings and a lot of brainstorming.
So what is your hour? Because you're kind of all over the place on time that you work. So what's a
Yes.
standard daytime hours for you, like block?
Usually a solid 9 to 5, and then sometimes, in the evenings if we've got a council meeting to go to or an event happening, and then weekends, whenever we have an event. This past Saturday we were out at the Grand Junction Plaza for about 8 or 9 hours, so it can vary week to week, which is kind of nice.
Sorry, are we recording? Yeah, we're recording. All right. So how long have you been at Westfield Welcome?
Almost 2 years. So I think next week will be 2 years.
Okay. Are they gonna have a big party for you?
Probably not.
2 year
We would probably have to plan it, so probably not.
It would just be more work for you.
Exactly. Yeah, I'll pass on the party. If somebody wants to bring some ice cream around, I wouldn't say no, but no party necessary.
That's hilarious. All right, so tell us, who is Kayla and where were you born, raised, family, just stuff, school, stuff like that.
Sure.
Before Westfield Welcome. Tell us that.
Long before Westfield Welcome. So Kayla Arnold, I do live in Westfield with my husband, David. So if you've been to any events, you've probably seen him at my side helping. We have been married since 2016. So at the end of the month, it'll be 7 years, which is exciting. But was born and raised in northern Indiana in a small town, Kendallville, about 8,000 people. And then moved to the South Bend area, went to the IU campus on an academic scholarship, and ended up staying there for, 10 years or so. My husband's originally from there, so that's how we met. Okay. I had some family that lived there, some grandparents, aunt and uncle. So it was kind of an easy transition from, living at home to living on my own. It was far enough away that my mom had to give me a heads up she was coming over, but still easy to make a day trip. So loved my time there, and moved down here in 2016 to get married and started working for the city of Carmel. So I did events with their community relations and economic development department, worked there for about 3 years, and was tapped by the Jensen administration when he took over in January of 2020. And worked there, loved it. They were running at 100 miles an hour with the new administration, and then March of 2020 happened. So we shifted very quickly. So then the opportunity came for me to take the position in Westfield, and we lived here when we were looking for our home. We live right off the Midland Trail. And we were like, oh my gosh, this Grand Junction Plaza thing is going to be so great. Like, we'll be able to bike to the farmer's market. We'll be able to bike to all these concerts that are going to happen. We could walk there if we wanted to. We can walk down to Park Street. So that was.
And now you really don't get to do that ever.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So now I'm at Grand Junction Plaza all the time, but more for work rather than for fun.
But you were sold on the concept long before you did the job.
Yes, absolutely. And we lived in Carmel
Mm-hmm.
Before we moved to Westfield, we lived right off the Monon. And so having trail connectivity and trail access was super important to us, which is
Was it?
why we wound up in the subdivision we wound up in.
All right, so let's back up a little bit because you gave us a lot of info there, which is what I
Yes.
asked for. Um, School, what did you go to school for?
So I went to school for mass communications, public relations, and marketing.
Okay. Is that what people do with that degree, this kind of work?
Uh, when I went to school, yes.
Was it?
Now they
Okay.
actually have event management degrees.
Oh,
So
okay.
there's, a little bit more in depth
Mm-hmm.
in terms of, managing events and how all of those processes work, which would have been great if that was something that, I had back then, because I've done events since probably 2007, 2008. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it's come a long way.
Oh, I bet. Did you want to do events? Is this kind of when you went to school, is this kind of what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I kind of stumbled upon it, if we're being
Hmm.
honest.
Yeah.
Loved kind of did a couple fundraisers with school when I was in high school, and then I took an internship with a local radio station group, and
Okay.
I thought, wow, this was super fun. Like you could,
Uh-huh.
go to concerts, you could, meet people, interact with the community, promote local businesses, and so I was doing my internship, and then about 3 weeks or so before the end of it, my boss resigned because she had kids that were starting travel sports and all of that good stuff. So she was like, I don't like the hectic schedule and the not the 9 to 5.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I was like, I'm really interested in this.
Kind of
And
cool.
so
Yeah.
yeah, I met with the general managers and said, I would love to be considered for this. I know I'm still in school. And it was a family owned company. They were super great on, we want you to finish school, but we want you to have this job. So we'll work
Mm-hmm.
around, what we need to work around. And it ended up working out great. I worked
Yeah.
there for 4 or 5 years and really enjoyed it.
So you said something that I didn't know that you've been doing stuff like this since like 2006, 7, 8, those times. What was it like trying to put on something big when everyone was depressed and we're in a recession and there's no money? And I understand that government kind of had money, but what was it like? Was it different or more
It
difficult?
was a little different. So I primarily did radio promotions.
Hmm.
The salespeople were the ones with the difficult job. So they would go
Yeah.
sell it to the business, and then I would execute it. And so
Hmm.
it was rough.
Yeah.
Events definitely slowed down for a period of time, but there was still a need and a desire to have things to do within the city.
Hmm.
So that was a big part of it, and
Yeah.
people still wanted concerts. They still wanted those types of things. We just were cognizant, kind of on price points and
Yeah.
free versus ticketed and all those types of things.
Hmm. Hmm. All right. So you've worked for Carmel, then Fishers. When do you go to Noblesville? Have
Well,
they?
I've worked in Noblesville. I haven't
Okay.
worked in
Good.
Fishers.
Are you
So,
Noblesville? That's right. When do you go to Fishers? Have you started
Fishers
that
is
yet?
Fishers is great, but I'm good. I'm good in Westfield. So,
All right.
if I living where I live, it takes like a half hour to get over to Fishers.
Yeah.
So I'm not
The
sure I could
hassle.
do. I'm not sure I could do that commute in the morning if I'm being honest.
Mhm. So when you was there a job opening at Westfield Welcome, or was this something you got recruited for? How did it come about that you interviewed for Westfield Welcome?
Yeah, so it was more so kind of a recruitment effort.
Uh-huh.
So Angie Frazier was in the position
Mm-hmm.
before me, and we had gone through HCLA together. We were in Westfield Running Club. We did some things within the county for arts and creativity. So we knew each other, and she knew I was kind of wanting to fill that event itch again and
Mm-hmm.
kind of be where I live.
Yeah.
So she, was like, I think I'm ready to move on, but I want
Mm-hmm.
to, make sure everything's in a good place. I want to make sure I find somebody that, fits with the team well and all of
Mm-hmm.
that stuff. So, went through the interview process with mayor and chief of staff and all that good stuff. And fortunately, they decided to offer me the position.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a wild ride.
So you got the job, and I know it was much smaller of an organization when Angie had it, or I feel like it was.
Yeah.
Um, how big was that team when you took the job?
So it's there's three full-time, one part-time, and myself. And so that got amped up right about 2 weeks before I started, is
Oh,
when they
okay.
kind of got the team back up to,
Uh-huh.
we'll call it full strength.
Okay, got the team back together.
Yes.
So I interviewed Angie Frazier. I did a podcast with her,
Yeah.
and I'm scared of her, but I didn't know that I really should be when she blew my mind saying she was a security guard at a prison.
Yes.
Dropped that on me, and I couldn't focus the rest of the meeting. So,
I don't have any hidden secrets like that.
oh, you don't shoot.
Nope, sorry.
All right, so you take the job, or you get recruited. You get offered the job. What when you began, what did you see your task to be? What did you feel like your job was at that point?
So at that point, Grand Junction Plaza was still under construction.
Mhm,
We knew that it was coming. We knew that, we wanted to, move events in there, create new events, and kind of grow, but we didn't know what that meant.
mhm,
So I kind of came in and, helped with that. So there were already a lot of good ideas and some plans in place. So it was really just how can we make that happen within the plaza, and what makes the most sense, how do we use the space, and how do we keep providing things for residents to do.
mhm.
We don't want residents to have to go into Carmel or into
Yeah,
Noblesville to do cool things. So what can we do that our residents will appreciate and what they will be receptive to.
mhm.
And so that's, sometimes it's just like, throwing a dart at a dartboard sometimes.
Did you feel like, and Angie did a great job, and I understand everything's about getting it better and better. Did you feel like it was, did you immediately identify things that could be improved on and that you were excited to jump in on, especially since the plaza was getting finished and Grand Park was now kind of functioning normally?
Yeah. I mean, I think, in doing events, for as long as I've done them and at the different, levels and stages and sizes, I
Hmm.
think there's always room for growth and
Hmm.
improvement and ways to, make things more efficient or add things. So I think everybody brings a unique perspective to that. So I think I just kind of stepped in and, I didn't want to change anything right out of the get go. I wanted to kind of
Yeah.
see, how things were operating and what made sense and why things were the way they were, and then
Hmm.
and then look at things and say, how can we change or improve, or and it could be something as small as pushing back a start time. Instead of starting
Hmm.
at 10, let's start at 11, because there's a lot of families that have kids in youth sports, and they're
Hmm.
already out at 8 and 9 a.m. So let's give them a little bit of a break before they make their way over to our event.
When you came on, I mean, obviously you had a pretty good resume, and they liked you enough to hire you. Did they give you free? I've never, I've never worked for a government or a mayor. Um, do they give you kind of free run, or do they trust you? Is it kind of like, oh, they'll give you a little bit at a time? How does that
I
relationship
I think
work?
it's a little bit of a runway at
Uh-huh.
times, but no, Mayor he's very much wants to have the right people in the right seats on the bus, not just
Uh-huh.
having the right people on the bus.
Hmm.
And so I was very fortunate where he was like, "Hey, if you have an idea and it's within the budget and your team can do it, go for it.
Hmm.
Let's try it." So that's been probably the most fun part of the job, is not
Hmm.
saying you need to have 12 events, you need to have 20 events. They need to be these types of things. So
Hmm.
that's been the great thing, and my staff is incredible. They have,
Yeah.
tons of ideas. They're very creative. And so when we come up with something, it just continues to evolve and get bigger. And, we just keep adding to it. So sometimes I have to be like, they call me the fun sponge sometimes, because I'm like, I don't know if we can pull that off.
The
Like,
fun
it
sponge. That's
sounds
funny.
really cool, but like maybe
Uh-huh.
let's try this event, and then we could add that next year, if things go
Uh-huh.
really well. So we always want to grow and change some things. That way we have something kind of in our back pocket to add for the
Yeah.
following year too.
So if you had to describe, I meant to ask you this question, um, to lead in. What do you feel like is the main function of Westfield Welcome?
Sure. So we are the community events and engagement department of the city. So we want to provide, things for residents and their families to be able to do. I mentioned it a couple minutes ago. We don't want people to have to go into Carmel to do fun, free things. We want people to be able to do that in their own backyard. Ultimately, we're, funded by taxpayers, and, you can come out and, we're going to have a great time. And that's, putting your tax dollar to use. So, there's times where people, they're like, oh, I don't know what's going on. And I'm like, how can we reach you? How could, these are things we want you to know about. We want you to be able to do these things. And so we're continuously educating everybody on, things to do and what we're about. And so kind of a long-winded answer to say,
that's a good answer.
We're there to provide things for people to do.
You brought up a good thing about messaging and communication. I've been in meetings before where you said, well, I put it on Facebook, I put it on the newsletter, it went out in the whatever, all this stuff. Is it a moving target trying to get to everybody, or do you just at some point have to say, I'm not going to be able to reach everybody?
I mean, I think we've accepted that we're probably not going to reach everybody, but if there's some, publication or some group or something that's, has a lot of legs on it and a lot of people involved, and we're not a part of that, we want to be a part of it.
Yeah.
We know that not everybody's on social media. We know that not everybody reads the things that they get in their mailbox. Not everybody reads the Current. So we just try to, we try to hit a lot of people, with the best allocation of resources that we can.
Do you feel like, and it is your job, but the obligation of creating a really cool event and place for a community to connect, do you find, is it hard for you to, or is that part of the challenge of making sure it's cool for everybody? Or, I mean, what's your thought process on that, on trying to create events that are great for the 40,000 people or whatever?
Yeah. So it's a little bit of, we know, again, everybody's at different stages in their life, whether, they've got small kids at home, kids in high school, they're empty nesters, they may not have children. So we want to provide events that, everybody feels comfortable at. We just had our Cuisine Connect Multicultural Festival. While we had kind of a more kid-focused, Passport in the Plaza activity for people to do, I mean, there were food trucks there. There were performances on the stage. So there were a lot of different options for people of all ages. And same with our Jams at the Junction concert series. We had concerts on the main stage. We had an airbrush tattoo artist at all of them. We had ice cream at all of them, but we also had Grand Junction Brewing there. So we want to make sure that there are opportunities, for everybody to get together. And I think, looking back at our first year of the concerts, the best part was seeing the people that, came out as a multi-generational family. So you would have, the grandparents, tossing the football with the grandkids, and, they were eating pizza from Greece that they got carry out for.
Right.
So it was just so neat seeing families, come together, or people make it an outing where, there were, I think every single concert, there was somebody with a birthday balloon there. So
oh, really?
They clearly wanted to be there to celebrate something, which was just so neat. And then we'll have, our mother, son, daddy, daughter dances. Obviously those are very focused, for kids and parents. So we try to provide, different things for different, stages of life. But at the same time, we want people to come out and enjoy everything that there is to, be had.
Are most of your events at the Plaza at this point? The majority? Or not?
The majority of them are. I mean, we still have events that take place at Asa Bales, just south of high school. We're looking at, are there events that we could do at Quaker Park, in the future? And then we'll activate our trails for Melt the Trail for our 5K in February. But I would say the vast majority of them kind of have shifted to the Plaza.
Do you do the 5K? Because I know you're like a runner biker. Do you do that?
I'm usually busy working the event, so I'm not participating. But I have run them in the past. So
it is funny.
I like to say I'm a recovering runner now.
Oh well, I haven't dabbled my toe in it yet, so
There you go. We'll take runners, walkers. If you've got a stroller, that's good. We've got dog
I
tag
ride a
dash
dirt bike.
coming up. What's that?
Can I ride a dirt bike? That's when you've got me.
Well, we'll talk offline about that.
So I get a kick out of you keep talking about really fun things that you would enjoy as a resident.
Right.
Right? Like you're creating the perfect place for yourself.
Right.
And
Yeah,
but you don't
absolutely.
get to really do any of it. You're on the back end of all of it.
That's
That's pretty
that's
funny.
true. That's true. But I mean, the cool thing is seeing it all come together and seeing all of those people
Yeah.
come and enjoy it. And that's
Mhm.
from the day that I started doing events. That's been the best part of the gig is just the memories that people are making, and
Mhm.
the things that people they can do in their own backyard. They don't have to go to Indianapolis. They don't have to go to Carmel. They can come to Westfield and be able to do those types of things. And so
Do
that's
do a
kind
lot of
of
people know who you are? Are you gaining like where everyone knows who Kayla is at all the events?
occasionally, yep, that'll happen.
Yeah.
So there was I my husband's an introvert and I'm pretty extroverted. So I always joke, I'm like, I can't go anywhere in like pajamas or like a hat or any like I have to
Uh-huh.
be put together. And he's like, no, you don't. And he's like, people are people, it's fine, like don't worry about it. And like the one
Uh-huh.
time that I like go out into public, like wearing my Crocs, like no makeup on, straight from the gym, it's like I run into like
Uh-huh.
three people at the grocery
Yeah,
store. I'm
everyone.
like,
Yep.
this is why.
Mhm.
But I was actually at Loft picking up an order a couple months back, and I had done one of the videos with the city about some events that were coming up in the Plaza.
Mhm.
And I went to pick up my order. I told him my name, and she goes, "Do you work for the city of Westfield?" And I was like, yeah, because sometimes you just don't know how that conversation is going to
Uh-huh.
go. And I'm like, yeah, I do. I work for Westfield Welcome, and she's like, I saw you like on YouTube, and I was like, oh my gosh, thank you.
Awesome. Have you
So
signed
occasionally
anything?
it'll happen,
Yeah.
but I would rather be doing the event than necessarily be in
Mhm.
front of the camera.
All
So
right.
we're working on it.
That's fair. So, one question that I think we were trying to avoid, but it just got kind of thought about it. Have you had to avoid politics in your job just to stay on task? Is there because I know that there's like budget pull and who your identity pull from different sides. Have you had to just kind of ignore it because you really can't take sides or even care to take sides? Uh,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's kind of ultimately what it comes down to. Like,
mhm,
I'm there to do the job that I was hired to do, and
mhm,
that's I try to stay in my lane. So
mhm,
when there's budget talks and all of those types of things, obviously I'm going to advocate, for our department and for our team.
mhm,
But at the end of the day, people are going to do what they do, and so we
mhm.
just will work with what we're given.
Yeah.
Does that mean we'll have to change things or evolve and bob and weave? We'll do that. But I try to, when it comes to my job, I try to stay focused on doing
Mhm.
my job and try to not let that external noise really get to you.
I know you've had a lot. Mayor Cook has been very supportive. Do
Mhm.
you feel like it'll only and I know Scott's supportive. Um, do you feel like it can only grow? Do you think it's going to? Are you looking forward to even greater expansion the new year, or with just a fresh administration?
Yeah,
What's
absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of excitement around
hmm
everything that's coming, but
hmm
we haven't gotten there yet. So,
yeah.
uh, we're still chugging forward. We're still planning our events, as we would in any other type of situation for 2024. And
Mhm.
if we're fortunate that we're given the request that we've asked for, we'll certainly add more programming and add more events. But we know that we're probably going to be doing these same core things. And I
Yeah.
think that there's certainly room to grow. I would love to see the department grow, personnel wise as well as events. There's a lot of, my team has a lot of great ideas I mentioned, but we're a small staff. So we
Yeah.
can only do so much and work so many weekends. So until we kind of get, a little bit, a few more people on board, we won't be able to, add some of those things. But if you look at, a city like Carmel or, even Fishers, they have pretty robust departments in terms of staff. And so that's how they can get a lot of things done. And they've done a really good job at that. And so certainly think there's room to grow. We've got ideas that we want to implement, and we'd love to see more concerts. And we've got this ice ribbon coming up in November that will launch. And so there's, will be a year-round programming department. And so that's it's exciting, and it's also kind of scary because it's like it's happening. Like,
yeah, right.
November's coming. We've been talking about it for so long that you kind of forget that it's in a couple months. So I think my countdown the other day said 60 days until grand opening, and it's like, okay, we're in it. We're gonna do this.
Does it really open in 60 days or whatever?
59. So
2 months.
Yeah.
So how does that change? Like do you just have to add even more events and activities when you get a new feature like that?
Yeah, so that's one thing that we're going to look at this year and kind of determine. So the ice ribbon will open on, I guess it's kind of like a sneak peek, an official press release to come out.
Write this down.
November 18th will be our grand opening of the ice ribbon. And this year will kind of be that learning of, when do people like to ice skate? When do they want to ice skate? Do they want other events surrounding the ice ribbon? What does that look like? So we'll use this year to kind of determine some of those things and ask those questions of people who attend. And then hopefully be able to, implement and add some of those things in the future based on that feedback we get.
Can you get too many people to your events?
Probably not.
No. Do you ever have events and you're like, ooh, we may have oversold this one?
No, I mean, it happened. So this summer we did our first kids concert over on the east side of the playground, and we were like, man, if we get like 50 to 100 people, we will call this like a raging success. That first Tuesday, I mean, the weather was great. People were clearly itching for something to do. There were almost 400 people there on a Tuesday at 10 a.m. Yeah, and I was like, okay, this is great. So we, as we do, we, bob and weave, and we're like, okay, do we think we're gonna have the same attendance next week? Like, where should we move it? Like, should we move it over to the Grand Lawn? Like, what does that look like? And so that's what we do, and that's what we thrive on is, how can we change things, on a dime? So there was that instance, and then we've got this thing called the solar eclipse that's going to happen next year, and everything that we've been hearing from community partners and people that chase these things across the world, that there's going to be a lot of people that come into Hamilton County, upwards of 1 million into the county for
for
the eclipse. And so
they can't see it in other places.
Well, they can, but there's only, certain areas of the country that'll have it. And so, the northern Indiana, Chicago, Michigan, they're not in the line of totality. So they're going to, come down to experience this is what we're being told. So that's.
Well, you say really, it like you really understand it.
Understand the eclipse, or
yeah, like I don't even know how it works.
We're we've been meeting for probably almost a year about this already, and it's still not until April. So I've learned a lot about eclipse chasers, as they're referred to, and they are the 3 T's of eclipse events are toilets, trash, and traffic. And so that's what we're working with.
You got that.
Yeah.
You got that. You can handle all that. That's pretty funny. I would have never thought that was a big deal. I thought it was just something we look forward to, and my watch has to be reset, things like that.
Right. Apparently it'll get dark in Westfield for about 3.5 minutes. And it's enough time that like crickets start chirping, and like cows and chickens get like all out of whack, and they start making noises, and it's a very interesting phenomenon, but it won't happen again in this area, I think, for like another 600 years. So it's literally a total one, is a literal once in a lifetime in Hamilton County.
All right.
Yeah.
Very cool.
More to come on that.
So you talk about, you mentioned other communities and you're from other communities. Is it hard to stay unique because you're all kind of competing for Saturdays and Thursday night, whatever it is?
Yeah.
Is it hard to stay unique or to keep people local, or how do you do that?
Yeah, I think it can be difficult to stay unique.
Mhm,
I think like general events overall, in the Parks and Rec world is kind of, it's cyclical and people just, they're like, oh, that community did that. That looks great. We'll do it.
mhm.
And
Yeah.
I think when the unique factor comes down to, what's actually offered at that event. So
Mhm.
something like trick or treating in the plaza is a perfect example. Lots of communities do a trunk or treat or a community, trick or
Yeah.
treating event. They don't all have a movie right after them. They don't all have character meet and greet appearances.
Mhm.
And so those are things that we do that kind of help set us apart from other ones.
Mhm.
Um, or touch a truck events, those are
Yeah.
done all over the country. And so how can we, add things or, reach out to other, types of trucks that, might not be in your traditional truck. 2 years ago, we had a helicopter that came. People wouldn't think of that as a traditional truck,
No.
but it was
It's
a
cool
an
though.
apparatus that people could
Yeah.
get in and touch and see. And
Uh-huh.
we watched it land and almost blow away a tent. But it was great. So I think just kind of those little things within events is what
Yeah.
helps keep them unique.
So you run the touch a truck that's down in the plaza there or at, the shopping center?
We do the
Or it
one at Grand Park.
was? The one at Grand Park, okay.
Yeah,
Who's the one at the shopping center? Is that not Westfield, or was it?
I'm
Do I
not
not
sure.
know what I might
So a while ago, I believe the township used to do one, and then
okay,
when they kind of switched some programming, that was an event that we took over on their behalf.
okay,
Mhm.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Alright, so you talk about, you just told me they can't be too big. So if you had unlimited funds, unlimited time,
Oh boy.
just a rubber stamp, what is a dream event for Kayla to throw, or what is a dream outcome of one of your events? Something like that. That's just like you hit it and you have to quit after that. Your solar
I don't
eclipse
know
of
if I would want to
events.
quit after that. I might want to sleep after it, but
Yeah.
oh man, that's tough.
Mhm.
Uh,
Finally, a tough
Gosh,
question on my podcast.
wow, that's probably the
Is
toughest
that
question
too
you've ever
tough?
asked me. I don't think it's too tough, but I don't know. I see an event where the community really wants to own it too. Like they're
Mhm.
really invested in it and they want to be a part of it. I don't know if that's, a music festival or an arts festival or some kind of sports type festival. Um,
Hmm.
but just something that I think I keep coming back to like Westfield Rocks the Fourth. Like there's so much
Yeah.
community pride with that. It's one
Mhm.
of our largest attended events. We're fortunate that we get a lot of people from out of town as well because we've done
Mhm.
the event so well. And we have a pretty awesome fireworks show.
Yeah.
So just having events that the community can really own and be a part of, and
Mhm.
they're so excited about that event that they're making sure they're telling their friends and family and dragging them along with them, like,
Mhm.
you have to come to this, it's so much fun. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
That's a good answer.
maybe that's a podcast session too that we'll dive into
Once you
later.
dream of something, what's it like having something as big as Grand Park to throw an event at? Is that cool?
It's cool, and it's also like, what can we fill the space with?
Uh,
Because we do have a budget that we have to stay within. Could we activate more fields for something like Westfield Rock Support? We could, but
mhm.
we need more people and we would need more money for that.
Mhm.
Because it's such a great event. Our food vendors always have lines, our attractions and inflatables always have lines with them.
Mhm.
And so it's fun to be able to, kind of dream big and then kind of scale it back to, what's gonna fit within the budget. But it's fun being able to utilize that space out there
Mhm.
for sure.
So how many events do you have at Grand Park each year? Or
So we
what
do,
are your events
yeah.
at
So
Grand
at
Park?
Grand Park, we do Westfield Rocks the Fourth
Mhm.
and Touch a Truck. And then generally, Grand Run, our Memorial Day event, is starts there as well. So we start there, we exit the campus, for the actual run, and then they run back.
So your July 4th event, is it just a logistics nightmare? I mean, is it just chaos? And I know you're good at controlling that, but is it chaotic?
Oh yeah. I mean,
Uh-huh.
every large scale event has some chaos to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it takes a special type of person to enjoy that chaos, which is
Mm-hmm.
why not everybody likes planning events.
Uh-huh.
But there's a lot of logistics, and there's a lot of hoping that people read the instructions properly and that they
Yeah.
show up when they're supposed to show up. And because if one person, shows up 30 minutes after they're supposed to be there, it can become a nightmare trying to get them
Mm-hmm.
into the spot that they're supposed to get into. So we always send a lot of emails. We
Mm-hmm.
remind people that, this is your load in time. But we know that, people are human, flat tires
Mm-hmm.
happen, those types of things. So we're good at, working through that when we need to. But if you ever participate in an event, or if anybody listening participates in one, always read your vendor instructions and show up when they ask you to show up. Don't show up
Uh-huh.
15 minutes early because you want to be cordial. Show up when
There's
you're
a
supposed to
reason
show
for
up.
that.
Yeah.
We sold pizzas at the track one year,
Okay.
and the people in charge were kind of mean.
Oh no,
And
it
but
wasn't
not
me.
no, they weren't like, but really they weren't mean. They were just, they had it, they had hundreds of vendors,
Yes.
and they had to be very stern and direct. And this
Yes.
wasn't a fun day. This was work, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of people
we
counting on it to be right.
we try to have fun, but there's
Uh-huh.
certainly times, especially in, when you get to somewhere like the Plaza,
Uh-huh.
it's a lot more constrained. So, it's a much smaller road.
Uh-huh.
There's active traffic that's happening. Whereas Grand Park's kind of out there, and you can stage in parking lots. We don't
Uh-huh.
have that benefit at the Plaza. So it's very, pull in, unload. We'll help you carry your stuff to where you need to set up, but then we need you to move your car before you start
Mm-hmm.
setting up your tent. And some people aren't used to that. So we
Yeah.
have to, we have to remind them, hey, we need you to move your car because we need to bring the next load of people in.
Mm-hmm.
And they're starting to get that now that we've done a lot of events out there. But it's always a learning curve for people.
Yeah.
But we always try to have fun though. So
Is will it benefit you at the Plaza? Because I know you have huge crowds at the Plaza, and it
mhm,
seems to be functioning. Will it benefit you? Will you see a benefit when there is better parking downtown?
absolutely.
You do think
Absolutely.
so? Is it
Yeah.
because people will show up not upset, or is it because more people will be able to get there? What do you say about that?
Yeah. So my biggest thing is, knock on wood, I've never had anybody come up to me upset about parking. I know that's not always the case on Park Street, but
You should work the host stand at a pizza shop.
no, thank you. Uh, hard pass. But we run shuttles for, all of our larger events that we do. Whether it's a physical trolley that can fit, 30 people on it, or if it's, the golf cart shuttles. So we always actively try to do that. We always post, hey, just a reminder, this is where you need to park.
Mhm.
It's a 5-minute walk if you don't want to wait for a trolley. So we really try to get that message out there in terms of
Mhm.
parking. But we know that some people, might not know that, or just
Yeah.
don't want to deal with it. And so they might not come to anywhere near downtown. They might not come
Yeah.
to any restaurant on Park Street. They might not come to
Yeah.
the Plaza. And so I think with the parking garage, that will help immensely because, people know that there'll be some dedicated parking right there
Mhm.
that they'll be able to access. And
Do-
it's,
Will you
it's
start backing out some of the services like the trolley and things like that once you have that, do you think?
I think it'll depend on, how many parking spots, what goes into
Yeah.
that development, in terms of a
Mhm.
restaurant or things like that. So we'll have to balance, how many residents there are versus, what the retail and restaurant looks like
Mhm.
on the first floor, before we determine, if we completely get rid of those services.
Yeah.
Like for 2024, we're still going to, have a trolley. We'll still operate the golf cart shuttle. We might back those down a little.
Mhm.
We might go from, instead of having a 36-person trolley, we might just run the golf carts. So we'll evaluate as all of the events happen. And if we need to
Mhm.
add it in, if we take it away and we realize, oh, people really liked that, we'll certainly add it back in if we can.
Is I just looked here. We are right now at 50 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
How many people have we lost?
Probably everybody. But we're having a great time.
Sorry, you want to keep talking? All right, so here's the one thing, and if there's anything you want to get to us, let me know. But I want to know how people and businesses can engage in Westfield Welcome going forward. That is because I think it's very important, and I think we miss it a lot. And so
Yeah.
if you could tell us how that kind of stuff, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the easiest and probably most, 2023 way is, follow us on social media
Hmm.
to just know what's going on. We post all of our events there. We'll post before the event, during the event, after the event. So
Hmm.
that's a big thing. And then our website, bookmark our website, make it your, default homepage if you want to.
I
So
like that.
we've got we've got
If
all
it's
of
not
our
WKRP, you can have
right,
that.
yeah, you don't
Yeah.
need that. We list all of our events on the website. So, we are, like I mentioned earlier, we're in a lot of, Westfield Magazine and the Porter
Hmm.
and the Current. So all of those types of, publications, we always advertise our events. Sign up for the city newsletter on the city website. So we promote our events that way as well through their newsletter. We're always looking at ways to grow that. And just, if you see our tent out somewhere, come up and engage with us. We're happy to talk to you. I've met so many new residents that way. And
Hmm.
it's just cool to hear their stories about, how they wound up in Westfield. There was a
Yeah.
family that moved here from San Diego like a
Hmm.
month ago, and they were just so excited to be a part of the city. So in terms of coming to events, I think that's kind of the
Hmm.
best way to get the information. We also could not do our events without volunteers. So we have a volunteer section on our website on westfieldwelcome.com. And we don't have any minimum requirements on our volunteers. You don't have to volunteer a minimum of 20 hours a year or anything like that. We have folks that volunteer at one event per year. They love dogs. They love the Humane Society. They come and volunteer at Barktoberfest every year, and we'll
Hmm.
take you. We love that. So all of our volunteers do go through a standard background check
Hmm.
just to make sure that, everything is on the up and up since we are, involved with the community and a lot of kids. So I want to make sure our volunteers are up to par, and we cover the cost for that. There's no cost to the volunteer. And then in terms of businesses getting involved, we're always looking for, whether it's being a vendor at our events, selling
Hmm.
your product or promoting your services or sponsoring. So there's a lot of events that we do that frankly we wouldn't be able to do without our sponsors. So that's kind of how we keep growing some of these events
Hmm.
as well.
So I just got thinking about the background check.
Yeah.
Bill Kirsch passes your background check.
I'm legally not allowed to talk about any of our volunteers'
Exactly.
background checks.
Exactly. um, well, I
Bill is
really
a great volunteer. Shout out to Bill and Sandy. They're
Bill's trouble.
they're
Sandy's
awesome. No
wonderful.
matter what Kurt says,
Uh-huh.
Bill and Sandy will take you driving our golf carts whenever you would like.
I can only say that because I think he might be out of the country right now or something. But
Fair, fair.
um, hey, thank you very much. I love
Yes,
what Westfield Welcome does, and it's been fun to watch just individually the Plaza come to life and become really have a really cool events and stuff. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for your hard
absolutely.
work, and thank
Absolutely.
you for coming on my podcast.
Of course. I hope we didn't lose everybody. I hope somebody watches this.
My mom will watch it and she'll
Perfect. I'll
comment
have
on
my
it,
husband
so
watch
we'll be
it, so
fine.
it'll be great. We'll get two.
Well, thank you very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Kurt.
Be sure to subscribe, like, and follow.